Alright, so let's start off with some of the basic features and shortcuts of the tool. So you can start off by moving around by just holding shift and using WASD. It's that easy. And then if you wanna hide the models, you press F1, hide the colliders with F2, hide camera zones with F3, and then you can hide entities with F4, and then you can click on an object, left click, and just disable everything else. So you can click on this, click all of this. You can select as many objects as you want by just holding CTRL and clicking, and then you can move it up and down. Now, you'll see it kinda moves up in large increments. All you have to do is press G, and then it'll turn the grid off, and then you can move it more smoothly. So usually turn the grid off, don't really see much reason to use it. Okay, and then let's go back, turn models off, turn colliders on. So when you're setting up colliders, there's one side that it will be active on, and it'll stop the player from walking through. So this side will be active, and the other side will let the player pass through. So, you want to make sure your colliders are facing the right way. So you press N, you can see the little spike that comes out, and then it'll tell you which way the main face is facing. So here, the collider's on this side, cause it's sticking out, and then here, the player can walk through. So if you want to change that, you select the objects you want, and you want to select individual parts of an object. You select triangles up here, and then you CTRL click them. So then you press Shift plus N, and then it'll change it around. So now the player can walk through here, but can't walk through this side. You can change it back, same thing, okay, and then, so back to this part, you can select individual objects or you can select the triangles of the objects. So you do this, and then you can also go into vertices here, and then you can select individual vertices of an object, and you can move it up and down. Alright, I'm gonna go into creating objects next. Alright, now we're just gonna make a basic object. So create a cube, make sure you're in the models tab, go into create primitive, and then you can select. You can select any shape you want. There's cubes, cylinders, cones, rings, spheres, so on. But yeah, we're just gonna do a cube first. Now, you've got your cube. It doesn't have a texture. If you wanna give it a texture, you can go in here, do anything you want, and if you want to change the way the texture scales, so we'll take this one for example, you press U, you select the object and then press U, and then you go in here, you can zoom out by scrolling, and then left click, hold left click and drag, select the vertices, and then you can, if you press space, you hold down space, and then you right click and drag, you can scale the texture to your liking. You can do uniform if you right click, and then you can do one side if you hold left click like this. Okay, and then press U again, get out. So now, we've got our block here. We can select individual triangles, and then select the vertices, and then we can adjust them as we want. Select this triangle as well, and there you can kinda create like an indent into it. Okay, you can terraform this way, but I wouldn't recommend this way. If you want to actually terraform, if you want to create like a rounded object, I would create a sphere, but if you want to create like terrain, I usually create a planar grid, and then I increase the amount of segments, but just be wary when you increase the segment size as it will, after a time, increase lag in your map if there are too many, so we'll just go with 6 on each, and move this down. Alright, so to terraform, I will take this texture, and make sure it matches how the rest of the texture looks, so just select all again. I'd say that's pretty close, let's just go with that for now. So now, take your object. To rotate your object, you go into one of these 2D planes, and you hold right click and drag, so you can rotate it this way. I'll try to match the way this map looks, so here, and then you can rotate it in this one, CTRL plus Z to undo. You can rotate this way. Okay, so it kinda blends in. It's not perfect, but we're just gonna go select individual triangles. So this is the terraforming part. Gonna select the middle ones. And now, you can need to undo that. Alright, so you can drag it up like that, and create a little bit of a hill, and then I deselect some more. You can also just go into one of these 2D planes to deselect, and then a bit more, and then I go into vertices, select individual vertices, and I drag them up to point it out. So now you've got this. If it's a little too tall, you can stretch it out a bit, shrink it a bit. All you have to do is hold space and then drag, and then move it down, like that, and then we've created kinda like a basic hill. I don't really like the point though, so I'm just gonna go back, and then I'm gonna select the vertex, and move it down a little bit, round it out. There you go, you've created like a little basic dune in the desert. Alright, so I'm just gonna create a basic house here, so I'm gonna start off by creating cube, and you can increase the size of the cube by holding space, right clicking, and then dragging like this, and if you wanna increase just one side, you can left click and drag. So now I'm gonna rotate it around, right click and drag, and then move it down. To clone an object, you just select the object, you hold Alt, and then you drag it. And now I'm gonna flip this around, I'm gonna put it in place here, and there you go, you've got a bit of a roof, but you'll see there's parts missing here, so you'll need to fill in the ends of the roof. So what I do is go back to select the object again, and then you wanna go into vertices, and then go into the 2D planes here, and then find the space you wanna fill in. You hold down Alt, click on a point, click on another point, and click on the other point, and it'll create a triangle in there, so you can see. To select just this triangle, you go ahead into triangles, and then move it into place. That's not perfectly connected, but you can do that by just selecting the vertices and then moving them. If you wanna be more exact, you go into the selection menu, go to transform, and then translate, and then you can change it back just like a couple of pixels if you want. That's a bit too much. Okay, well, I think that's fine, so move it a little bit to the right here, and then all you have to do is clone it again, and then you'll have it on the other side as well. So here we go. Like I said, this is very simple and I did it very quickly, but if you put a lot of time into it, you can make it look much nicer. Just change it up a little bit, there we go, and then we can go back into here, select object, change the way the texture scales. Okay, next, I'll go into colliders and camera zones. Alright, so to create your own colliders, all you have to do is select the object, and then go into generate collider here, and then you've got a couple of options. You copy mesh, which will just create a collider over every single triangle in the object. Usually, I try to avoid that if there's a lot of triangles, because it'll just lag the map, especially if you walk on it, walk near it, so in this case, you kinda have to, cause it's the floor and you want people to walk up it. If you don't want people to walk up it, you can do a convex hull, and that'll just put wall around it, so the player can't walk through. The concave hull, I haven't really found a use for it. You can copy floor, you can copy walls, but you can see it doesn't do the whole thing. You just want to make sure it selects everything that you want, so we'll do copy mesh, so now when the player walks on this hill here, they will be able to travel up it. Now, if you want to create a wall for here, it's really simple. Go into generate collider again, and then you go to copy wall, there you go. And now, for camera zones, all you have to do is again, just create primitive, and it doesn't really matter how many segments there are, so I'll just do the lowest one, and then I'll extend it as much as I want it to cover. So I want to cover the whole map here, and then I'll level it with the texture of the floor. And now, you'll know that it's level once it starts flashing like that. Okay, and now, you go into the bottom right here, you select as camera data, and you go into toggle preview mode, and then you'll see which way it's facing. Now, to actually do this, I haven't played around with this too much. I believe you take this, you move it around, it changes the rotation, change the position of the red one, which one's the position, this one, is it? Actually, you have to go into here, and then there's a bunch of different camera options. There's fixed orientation, look toward point. I believe that just will keep looking toward a point, no matter where the character walks, kinda like in Forever Forest, I believe. And then boundary camera, I'm not sure what that does. Follow player does as it says. Fixed position, orientation, I'm not sure how to differentiate itself from this one. look toward point, constrain to line, again not really sure, but I'll constrain between points. I believe it'll just have, you can select 2 points, and then the camera will move along that. So let's just do fixed position, orientation, so you can move this, there we go, so you can move the camera around here, and rotate this, put it over here, there we go. And now, if you want to adjust the way the camera is pointing, you go into boom here, and you just play around until you get the right one. Alright, now let's go over saving and loading objects, which I think is a very useful thing to know. So basically, you select the object you want, so let's take this rock, and you go here, and then you go into save objects, and you can save it anything you want, and just save it as rock, and then I'm gonna go into one of the maps I created, and we'll load that into that map. Okay, so go back here, load objects, open rock, there it is, put the rock in wherever you want. See, it doesn't have a texture because this texture archive does not match the texture archive of the desert, so let me just give it a different one here. I'll give it that. Alright, I've got a bunch of different objects I have stored. I just found it very useful to have existing ones that I can use anywhere I want. For example, I can load in some water, a water pouring effect like that. So like here's like a fountain or something. Okay, I could load in a shelf. It's for making like a house, doing some interior design. I could load in a tree, which is actually what I did for this map. I used this tree. There we go, and you can take the leaves, I'll clone it, and then just attach them on, something like that. Anyways, so yeah, it's very useful to know. Also, you can see here the background of this map is not a background that actually exists in-game. These backgrounds, when you actually save the map and try to play them in-game, it won't remember this background, it's just for an editor, just so you can see how it'll look as a preview. But if you want to change that, you can go into your folders here, go into image, background, and then you click on the one you want. So here you can see I opened up the title background, and then I opened it in Photoshop. I just scribbled all over it, and then you need to make sure you index it and then change it to RGB color. Then you can edit it, and change it back to index when you save, and you save it in the same spot you got it from, and then you can open it up in editor as well, but it won't show up in game, so I'll just change it here, and there you go. You can see there's scribbles all over the place. Alright, now I'll go into the next part. Okay, so when creating transparent walls like these, like this rave light and these circles here, you need to make sure that you render them properly. So you go into the bottom right here, see this is rendered at 14, I guess that works for that one. I usually use 11, so for these ones, you can see I use 11. For bushes, or any other texture that has invisible pixels in them, you render them in 0D, so same goes for crack here, and it should be 0D and then to the bushes as well, and the leaves up here, so just make sure you render them properly, and then if you want to make the texture move in editor only, it won't actually move in game unfortunately, but you go into preview options, you select the texture. Okay, guess it doesn't have a texture, do this one, so preview options, and then do horizontal scroll, you see it moves that way, and do vertical scroll, that is that simple. But yeah, if you want to actually make them move in game, that'll require some scripting, and I'm not sure how to do that yet. Alright, so now you've got your map, and you want to see it in game. Well, I don't know exactly how to do that yet, that requires some scripting knowledge, and I have yet to learn how to do that. So the workaround I do to actually preview these in-game is I just select all the objects. So go here, hold shift, select, and then go into colliders, and then you can select all the different colliders. I won't worry about it right now, though. You can select the zones, and here, entries and stuff. Don't worry about that right now. I'll cover that in a different tutorial. So you go back into save objects, and you just save it as one huge object. So I'll save it as test, and I'll open up a map with the same texture archive as this, and I believe this is the Pleasant Path texture pack. So let's go into NUC, go here, and then you go back into load objects, open test, and there you go. So then you can use this as a way to actually see your maps in game. It's not perfect, but that's all I can do right now, before eventually, I'll be able to figure out how to do it, so like just make my own rooms. But yeah, so there we go, and then you can go to it in game. You'll just need to make sure you make colliders for the floor, and then you wanna make sure you have a way to get there as well. So I just delete these colliders, and then just generate a collider to go over to it. That should do, so then you can walk over to it, just make sure it's at the right level, and there you go. And now, if you want to actually have this show up in game, you need to go into map, build geometry, build collision, and then save it, and then you go minimize this, and go back into your folder, go to Starrod again, double click, go to mod manager, and then you wanna find the map folder that everything's in, and then or the Starrod folder, and then you select, you need a ROM, a clean ROM, it has to be Z64, should look like that, so open this up, and then you go into compile mod, and you just wait for this to finish. Alright, so it finished, and then you just go into package mod, also make sure options that you keep compress mod package off, it'll just speed up the compiling packaging by quite a bit. Alright, so once you do that, you can close it, and then you go into Starrod Patcher, and then you choose the ROM again, and you go into your out folder and you select the mod that you just created, and then create modded ROM, and there you go, and now you just load that up in your emulator, could load it up in BizHawk, Project 64, whatever, and should show up in game. Just make sure you build geometry and build collision, it's very important, or else it will not appear. Alright, thank you guys for watching. I'll try and create some more tutorials for more the advanced stuff down the road, but right now, I'm just focusing on the map editing aspect of the tool. I haven't really played around with scripting, I don't really know how to do it either, so I'll have to talk to Clover and try to figure that out, clear it up with him, and then I'll do my best to make some more tutorials on those parts of the tool. Same with textures and sprites, but those don't work very well for me right now, so there's no point in making a tutorial on those. But yeah, so just stay tuned, and I'll try to get those out soon as possible, once I can. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.